lot of this stuff will throw you. Okay, we go back to our ground bar. We kind of see what we're looking at. Sheet metal screw, over the label, over drywall and paint. Do we have any type of good connection here at all? This is hazardous. You see something grounded like this that's in service, it needs to be taken out of service immediately and repaired. Also, one of the other things, you're not allowed to cover labels. How can you read it if you can't see it? Oh, the other point, you see how tight that is. How do you get a screwdriver in there and provide proper torque wrench or torque readings on those screws and terminations? You're not going to. It was not intended to be mounted in this manner. That termination block, that breaker handle? Okay, it just looks like it. Okay. God, I hope I didn't miss that. Okay. Rocco touched on this earlier. Lots of good information in here. Tells you what ground bars are required, how it's to be installed. All kinds of good information in here, including your torque data for your terminations. This is something almost everyone misses. Your terminations are critical for your electrical system. If they're not torqued down properly, too lightly, you introduce a lot of heat in the system. Eventually it's going to start arcing and sparking, and you can have a fire hazard. Same is true if you over torque it. It is just as bad, if not worse, than under torque it. You damage the conductor, it can fail. You should have torque wrenches or torque screwdrivers on the job site to make these terminations. Rocco.
Yes, sir.
Who was at the termination seminars for us?
Randy and Chris Hunter come and do, about once a year I have them come down and do a demonstration at our chapter meeting. So we'll advertise it and let you guys know. And it's a great opportunity to see what over torquing does. It damages. Under torquing damages. The reason that they give you specifications is with particular conductors, there's a certain amount of torque that you're supposed to tighten those things down to. And if you don't follow that requirement, the manufacturer tells you what they expect. If you don't do that, you have improper connections for any type of lug to to terminations, and you end up with hot spots. You end up with damaging the conductors. Aluminum conductors are very specific in breaking down that oxide that's on the outside, and if you don't follow that, you either don't break that oxide off of there, or you over tighten it and you end up with loose strands in the termination. So it's really important to follow those requirements, and it's actually in the 2011 code. There's a torquing table in the back, and the 2014 is going to require that you specifically come in and torque the equipment. So the contractors, if they're not on board, they need to get on board.
Some of the other things we learned, just real quick. You don't go back into a panel 5-10 years later and retorque the terminations. You leave them alone. They're torqued once, they're torqued right, you don't touch them. Retorquing them creates a problem. Additionally, really interesting, do I need antioxidant on aluminum? Check with your manufacturer of the wire. They're the ones who require it. Does anybody, or very few, I can't remember.
There's still some manufacturers that require it, but it's specific to that manufacturer, and they'll tell you exactly what to use and how to use it.
This is one of those items that when you turn that down, don't just blankly say aluminum conductors, you need antioxidant. Provide me the manufacturer's installation instructions so you can make that determination. Or at your discretion, you can use antioxidant and make the determination. But it's up to them. Antioxidant won't hurt, correct?
No, it's great to use on any type of conductors, whether it be aluminum or copper.
But it's not always required. Just be aware of that. It's something I learned just a few months ago. Yes.
As an inspector, you go out and look at this, how do you know whether it's torqued right or not?
You can't retorque it. If you put in a device on there and retorque it, you're actually creating a problem. So you're hoping that you walk up, you see the electrician working on it or somewhere, and you see torque wrenches. If you see torque wrenches, then you're going to make the assumption. I wouldn't say, I want to be here while you're torquing it. That's not going to happen. Where are your tools? Do you have a torque wrench? That's the question to answer. Yes.
Yeah, there's a big difference between inch pounds and foot pounds. You'd be surprised how many people don't know that. And they'll go down to the AutoZone and buy a torque wrench. And typically it's foot pounds. You go
12
over
foot
12
pounds
pounds.
is, how much is 12 foot pounds?
144 inch pounds.
Significant difference, so be careful. Also at this Termination Institute, one of the things they do to demonstrate how elite people are off when they make these terminations, they have a display. They cut the conductors, they stick them in terminations, they give you a wrench and say, torque it. And then they tell you how close you are to the required torque rating. About 95% of the people fail. And they're being really liberal with their judging. They say if you're within 10%, they're letting you pass. That's not really a good way to pass, 10%.
Is it higher on over or under?
Yes.
It's usually under, but many do go over.
Now, if you use a torque wrench, they're preset, so if you re-torque at that same setting and it pops, it should still be torqued
It
the
should
same.
click, but you still, people have a tendency to hit it again. You're supposed to stop, whether it's electrical switchgear, you're working on engines, you hit it once, you're supposed to be done. You're not supposed to keep doing it until you think that you're happy. One and done. Yes, sir.
We used to do a lot of preventative maintenance on our electrical equipment, and there was times when you could tell, from the expansion and contraction of the conductors, as well as what they were terminated under, aluminum or whatever. There was times when you could get a half turn on a lug, and I don't see how that would hurt the conductor. You know what I'm saying? Because you said torque it once, leave it for 30 years.
If
And I
it
don't
was
see
torqued,
that as
if it was torqued properly,
properly to begin with.
you don't know that.
Right.
You're assuming, and we all have to
We would
assume,
hope.
it was passed, it was supposed to be passed once, that inspector passed it, they made sure that the worker was doing his job correctly. That's all you can do.
I was doing a really complicated, doing inspections on a large medical facility. And I walked up, they were putting together transfer switches, UPS connections, and distribution board. And there was a young man there with a black pen, and he was going through, and every termination that he could find, he was putting a black tick mark on it. So I asked the question, I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I don't know." So when you're putting black marks on all those lugs, what does that mean? He said, "I really don't know. My boss just told me to go through here and put these little black marks on everything." So if you see that in a board, don't assume that somebody's actually had the torque wrench out and actually torqued that equipment. Ask them. Don't be shy about asking for the equipment. When have you had it calibrated? Are you using the right equipment? And have them give you a sample. Show me one how you do it and the information that you're using. Show me on the equipment. There's a breaker. There's the torque setting. Show me how you install one. I want to know.
Was he marking the top of the lug, or was he marking the sides and the panel?
He was marking the top of the lug every lug that had a termination, a conductor run into it. No, the inside of the opening of the hex on the set screw, he was putting a tick mark on it, and that typically is, I've torqued it, as you torque those, and they normally do a side, an individual breaker you go through, and then you mark them, so you know that you've done that. It's a quality control, but this young man, he had no idea what he was doing, why he was doing it, and obviously it was to impress the inspector later on when they came through for inspections. And the project manager and I had a discussion about when I come back, we're going to go through with a torque wrench, and I want to see some samples. They were a little nervous about, oh boy, I think we got caught.
But this also applies when you're putting switchgear together. If you have to bolt connections together, you're supposed to be using a torque wrench. It is critical. Yes, sir.
I couldn't understand why we're doing these torquing. We've got aluminum on aluminum. A lot of times these things are stripped down. Some type of anti-seize that is available, allowed to be used on these main ones.
That's something you gotta watch for. When you apply a lubricant to a lug,
Right.
you change that torque significantly.
Right.
You're over torquing it.